Barry Yeager. I've been on this thing for a long time. Things are different now than they used to be, and we'll talk some about that as we go through this list. We have Christensen, who's been with us, what, 6 years maybe?
Yep, sounds right.
4, 5, 6 years. And Pat is a new member just this past year.
Yes,
Hi,
indeed.
Pat, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi.
Board. When I got on this board over 40 years ago, we were most of these funds were in CDs and local banks, and every time that we had a CD come up for renewal, we'd call 2 or 3 banks and find who had the best interest rate and make a CD in that bank again. Sometimes we'd stay in the same one, sometimes we'd move it. And but since the bottom fell out of interest everywhere, and the interest has been next to nothing most every place, we really quit doing that. In more recent years, Dennis Firabay, who is the town treasurer, and who actually holds all the funds because he's bonded and we're not. So he has maintained, for a number of years, he maintained an account for each fund in a bank and in the Massachusetts Municipal Depository Trust. And that's a setup that the state has, which is for just that purpose, for towns and cities to put money in to earn income and so forth. And right now, all of these funds are in the Mass Municipal Depository. At this point, he has given up the bank funds. What he would do was he'd keep a little bit in each place, and then whichever one had the best interest, he'd move the larger amount of the money over into that account for a while. And then every year or 6 months or something, he'd look and see how it was. And if it looked better in the other place, he'd move it into the other account. And just so it kept picking up income. But since the interest rates tanked so badly, what was it, several years ago now? Well, it's the time of the last crisis, more than a decade ago. It hasn't worked very usefully to do very much of that at all. So the stuff, a lot of the money has stayed in Mass Municipal Depository and earns whatever it can there, but it doesn't earn a lot of money. And that's another reason why we've been much less active, is because if we don't get very much income, we don't have much reason to get together to spend it or to make other plans. At any rate, that's the situation we're in right now. I'm going to run through the list of the funds. The list that I sent you has at the top of the list of the principal of the funds. And then at the bottom of the list is the same names repeated. And in this case, it's the income part of the fund, the part that is expendable. In other words, we don't spend from the principals, but we can spend from the money that those funds have earned over the years. In a few cases, we've got some fair amount of money in them because they earned money, some of it several years ago. So the first one on the list is Mary Key's Highway Fund. Mary lived next door to you, Judy, in the next house toward town, on Pleasant Street from your house.
Okay.
And her husband built the house, and they lived their married life there, but they never had any children. And when she died in 1926, which was well after when he passed, she gave the town a fund of money, which was $2,449.03. It was, I think, the residue of her estate. And that was for the purposes of highways in the town of Berlin. Well, of course, 1926, she didn't live an awful long time in the time that a lot of people had cars. So I don't know whether her intent was to get more of the more of the roads paved or whether it was to do other things. But in most of her life, the highways were used as much for walking as they were for getting places otherwise. And um, at the present time, there are $5,679.42 in that fund, which is expendable. A few years ago, when some different folks were on the board, we basically said we'd like to see that money used for sidewalks. If there was going to be sidewalks put in the town, that we would be willing to have it used that way. And when they rebuilt the sidewalks on the Common, on Central Street and Carter Street on the Common, some years ago, Dennis Bartlett used some of this money, a similar amount to it was $5,000 or $6,000 that he used out of this fund to help do that project. And the remaining part is there, and this board can discuss how we'd like to see it used. But if there are continued ideas of building more sidewalks, that might be one possible way that we could have some impact with it. Needless to say, the money we spend on highways every year is large enough that this is just a drop in the bucket. But if it could encourage something like more sidewalks on streets that are dangerous to walk on, it might be a nice thing. At any rate, the next one is Nancy Young's school fund. Nancy Young actually lived up in Randall Road area. And when she died, she left the town $1,500 for schools. And at the present time, there's $4,500 and a little more in that fund that's expendable. I will say that while the schools get a lot of money from the town, and that's appropriate. We've often tried to figure out a way that we could give the schools something that they might not get through the regular budget process. Yeah, one time a few years ago, they had a big workshop for teachers on teaching math with manipulative objects. And we all took the course, and all the teachers took the course and learned how to do this, and that was wonderful. And then there was no money in the budget to buy any of the materials that we needed to use that. So we've spent over $1,000 that time and bought some of the materials that workshop had indicated that we could use, and that worked out very well for us. And those materials have been in the school since then. Obviously, there could be some other things there, and I don't know. The thing that I'm curious about with that one right now is whether there's anything that would really help them with the virtual school operations they're having to do now, and whether there's something that we could contribute to that would help that. But that's another matter. The Ella Fosgate Memorial Day Fund. That lady left $200 as a fund of money to help support Memorial Day expenses. Needless to say, that doesn't produce a lot of income. At the present time, though, there's $390 there. A few years ago, we offered to spend that money for sound system stuff for Memorial Day. But as of then, and I guess I would say still as of now, what's left of Dick Sawyer's stuff is still being used for that, and along with perhaps a couple of other things. And they've gotten by and didn't feel they needed to spend it at that time. We did for a time give them like $50 a year to help with the expenses for Memorial Day. But that one's kind of fallen by the wayside again now, but we could consider doing that. And we've got enough to do that for like 7, maybe 8 years before we depleted this money. So that would be a possible thing to do with that too. The Anna Hunt Fund, we're going to talk about a little bit more. Right now, I'd like to pass that one, and I've got that on the agenda to talk about more generally in a little while. And then we have the charity fund principle. What the accountant calls the charity fund is actually 2 funds. that were provided by two ladies in the 19th century, Katie Bride and Moore, a lady with the last name of Moore. And they, uh, they left money to help deserving women of Berlin. Their intention was not to make this welfare, but to help folks that lived on very little money, and particularly women. Katie Bride was a maiden lady. She never married, but she managed to amass some money of her own. She grew up on Walnut Street, where Pam, across the street from the greenhouses on Walnut Street, and but then later she lived in Carterville and at the house at National Lumber, Coldwell's National Lumber House. But she left, those two funds together amount to $3,461 in the principal. And at the present time, at the bottom of the list, is $2,202 over at the right, that's in the available money to spend. Now, Judy, you've been on this long enough so that I think we did do one of these while you were on, but I'm not sure. We've talked about it, I know.
Yeah.
Maybe we never actually did it. It's been a few years since we've done it, and that's why it's built up to $2,000. But what we usually do is get some information about people who are in need, and then we contact them. We essentially divide up the money that's available and send each one of them a check. Right now, I've got a list of 5 people that would, so we could send them each $400, and that would still leave maybe 200 there to start accumulating some more. So those are the funds that we would normally deal with. And we can talk about particularly the charity funds. I'm thinking about the number of people that are in need right now. I did send a list just a few minutes before the meeting of some names, and I was intending to discuss them quite openly here, but I'm a little bit concerned that I don't know who's on and listening. At the moment, it's just us, so I guess that's okay. And of course, the meeting could also be put up online. So I'm trying to keep from putting the people's names out to the general public. At the same time, in no way am I trying to hide them from appropriate scrutiny. But we usually don't give out the names beyond our own meeting, and to, of course, the treasurer and the accountant, so they can issue the checks. Are there any thoughts on that charity fund matter?
Well, I see the list. I've got the list in front of me, and obviously you people know more about that. There's 4 on the list and 1 more, right?
Yeah, there's one more. I got these names. Well, one of them is somebody who had a house fire in 2020.
Okay.
Basically lost her home. She and her sons are living, I believe, in Clinton at the present moment, but they still own the house, the remains of the house, and they're a Berlin family. The other 3 that are there, I got through the food pantry. Talked to the food pantry folks, and they had to check with the people and make sure it'd be all right to tell us. And then we got 3 names from there. And the other name that I have, I got through the school, through the school nurse.
Okay.
And I got that name and I had it, and somehow I've lost my note on it. And when I checked with the school nurse, she is not, somebody else was substituting for her today, but she should be in tomorrow, so I can get that other name. If we agree to do it this way, I will make up a voucher for the town with the people's names and the amount of $400 for each of them. And I will bring it by and have each of you sign it too, so we all three of us have seen it before it goes out to
That sounds fine.
the accountant.
Sounds good.
Um, Is there a motion to make that payment to the 5 people on our list?
So moved.
I
Second?
agree. Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second to distribute $400 each to the 5 people on our list. Anything to be said on that motion? Hearing
Barry,
nothing.
Barry, I have one question.
Yeah.
The family that lost their house, they've moved to Clinton. Is Clinton helping them? Have they got a place to live thanks to Clinton, or what's going on with that?
I don't know what their situation is in Clinton, but they've been a Berlin family for a good number of years, and as far as I know, they
I know.
still own their property here.
Right,
I don't know what other aid, I mean, that's one of the other things. Today, there's so many different ways that you get help if you're in trouble.
right.
From unemployment insurance to, you know, the Red Cross to whatever. That it's hard to know for sure
Who's
what
getting
needs
what?
where.
Yeah.
I've gotten the fact that some of them are, one of the people here had been in a situation where their car was getting repossessed, and one of them had has been mixed up in the thing. They can't get their unemployment insurance because somebody else has grabbed their social security number in a fraud thing. So they can't get their appropriate insurance, unemployment payments they should be getting. And so there's a combination of different things happening with different folks.
They did all agree though to this.
Yes, they all
Oh.
agreed to it, yeah.
Okay,
They agreed to let their names be given to it.
okay.
I will, if you want me to check more into the house fire one, I can do that.
Yep. Look at it.
But I mean, a house fire is, you lose everything, basically.
Yeah.
You can always use some help after that kind of a thing.
And they were here a long time. They
Yeah.
lived down where yeah, my
Oh,
kids knew
yeah.
that kid.
I knew all of their kids in school. They're in their 20s
Right.
now, but I knew them all when the
I
kids
know.
were in school and taught some of those children. At any rate, I'll call for a vote on the motion, and the vote, on these Zoom meetings, we have to take it by roll call.
Mhm.
So I say Ager, aye. Say
Pat
your
Jackson,
name and your vote.
okay. Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Judy, aye. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just writing a little down so I can make some minutes for it. Now the Anna Hunt General Fund. That's an interesting situation that has arisen since the town administrator arrived. For many years, the Anna Hunt Fund was left by Miss Hunt, who was a medical doctor in Marlborough, but she had family connections with Berlin, and she and her family are buried in the South Cemetery, right in the front, right behind the fountain. And she left this money to, one thing, take care of the lots in the cemetery,
Mhm.
and the second thing, for general use as the town may direct. And that's the way it says, as the town may direct. And the result is, instead of us deciding how to spend that money, for a very long time, it's been, some of you may remember in the town meeting, we have an article for the library each year. And the article for the library would say to transfer $50 from the Anna Hunt Fund to the library, and to accept all other monies that may be given to the library and allow the trustees to spend it, something like that one. Well, they were taking $50 a year from the Anna Hunt Fund income, and giving it to the library. And by the town voting it in town meeting, the town was directing how the money would be spent. The town administrator saw this last year and she said, $50, that's silly. I won't say she said it was silly, but she couldn't see why we did that in that kind of fashion every year. And so she wanted to have somebody else consider whether there was a better way to handle that. And I couldn't seem to get her to think that the way we're handling it was just fine, thank you, but that's all right. I think that, as we say here, there's $277 in the expendable account. At $50 a year, that's enough for 5 years, and maybe there'll be enough more for another year after that at that rate. I mean, it certainly, that was working okay in terms of the way we were doing it. I have a feeling that with the interest rates the way they are today, we're likely to run out of money in that to do the $50 a year before too long. But then the other question is, would we rather suggest to the town that they vote this money for a specific purpose in the town, whether it's for the library or somebody else, so that it might have a little bit more impact than it would as a $50 every year thing? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it wouldn't hurt to look around and see if somebody else could use it. What I thought I mean, we've given it to the library for a while now. So if there's somebody that needs it more that you would know about, or I'm not sure. It's too bad you couldn't get 50 here, 50 there. Like you said, it's not going to last long, but I don't know.
One of the things is, if we spend all of this, there isn't going to be any there for a while.
Right.
Because on $1,000 in today's interest rates, you're getting $10 a year or something. You don't get very much interest a year. And in fact, let's see, the number they give there is, I don't know, $6.78 in the in 4 or 5 months. So you're talking about maybe $12, $14 a year that it's earning right now.
Right.
So if you go spend it, you're not going to have any more to spend for a while, which would be all right if the town, if we decided to do it. But the town administrator wanted us to suggest whether we thought we should do $50 a year like we've been doing, or whether we should suggest to the town that we spend, 277, a larger amount of it on something all at once, or even let it accrue for a while so that we do something more with it.
Is the library has already received it over the last few years? Would they have a major problem if you explain that to them? And maybe you could accrue it to something else, or do you know more about the town activities that go on? Do you know of some organization or some group that might need it?
Well, most everybody that needs it can ask for a budget.
Yeah.
And almost everybody that has a budget, this is a drop in the pan for it.
Yeah.
Even the $275 is a drop in the pan.
Has a cemetery ever used it?
That's what I was going to ask.
Well, the cemetery, a portion of it is reserved for the cemetery.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah. And on occasion, the cemetery commissioners have used some of it.
Okay.
2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years ago, we actually, one of the pieces of curbing around that lot fell off and we had to put it back in place. But once in a while, cemetery has used it a little.
I agree with Pat, because I think, especially where they mentioned it for the cemetery, that was in the beginning.
Oh, definitely. No, we want to make sure that
something should be done for the cemetery. Yeah.
Well, sometimes if things work, doesn't mean they're broken. So
Right.
You know, if the library gets,
Good point.
it just worked for like 20 years, maybe it's okay.
Well, 50 years. That's kind of how I felt about it, but
If you get any ideas, Barry, who else might use it, want it?
I haven't particularly. Um, I'm just trying to get myself. I'm in the town report trying to find the right spot to. All right, the library. For the current year, the library has a budget of $154,000. And
That's a good, yeah.
obviously, whether they have the 50 bucks or not isn't gonna,
Make or break them. Yeah.
Yep.
the same thing, you know, a lot of the other areas, I mean, the recreation has a budget of $12,000. There's other things that have smaller ones, but there are a few really small budgets. But the thing is that most departments, if they've got very much happening, have
Right.
quite a fair amount of money to spend. And it isn't going to be some of the issue right now is that when this was a fund given to the town, it was seemed much more substantial than it does today.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And the principle hasn't changed. So almost any department that has a budget has got more money than that, a lot more money than that.
I've got a question. Could that, I don't know how the food pantry works exactly, but I would think food for people that don't have enough money to buy food, $50 would certainly help. Could we give it to them or not? I don't know how that works. I'm sure there's other organizations, but I'm,
Not a bad idea at all. However, I will tell you this information that I have heard of late.
okay,
The selectmen were trying to give some town money to the food pantry. And the
Okay.
food pantry said, we're doing all right, we just assume not.
Wow.
oh, okay. Well, that, I appreciate them being that honest about it. That's nice.
The food pantry is a tricky thing. It is an independent organization in the town,
Yep,
incorporated unto itself. The selectmen agreed to let them have the space to use in the town offices.
okay,
So the town is providing them with space, but no budget, and they're not part of the town government.
Hmm,
Oh.
okay.
There's no really official way that they're part of the town government. They've just been given a chance to have space there. And
Oh.
I have a feeling that when the select board offered them support, that they looked at it and said, this could get us involved in the politics of government that they don't have to be. And I think that
Right.
for what the money was, they might just as well continue
Leave
to
it
operate
be.
as they have been on other, with income from other sources. But I
Okay.
don't know what their thinking was. We could ask them about it though. I'd
Yeah.
be more than Mary
McKell.
McKell right now is kind of running it, and
Yep.
yeah, she's running it.
She is.
And they're doing a lot of things for a lot of people these days.
Right.
But it would be nice to know what their thinking was in refusing the money the select board offered.
Okay.
Scott Hawkins was trying to push the idea of the town giving them some money to help, and
Okay.
they said, well, we don't need to have that, you know, they didn't feel they needed to do it. So I don't know what was behind that, but before I would move forward with it, I'd ask them about it. And I'll try to do that before we have another meeting.
Okay.
Unless someone else wants to.
That actually sounds very nice because with a small amount of money like that, they could buy perishables or something at a
Right.
one-shot deal. So I
They
think,
can always use
yeah,
cash.
that sounds
And,
like a good idea.
and if in this case, we would make a suggestion to the town meeting that they pay this much from the Anna Hunt Fund to
Mm-hmm.
that. And that would not be part of a town budget. That would be a
Right.
gift out of somebody else's money.
Yeah.
It is the town, but it's not the kind of thing where they're going to get mixed up in the
Right.
town bureaucracy if they
Yeah.
accept it. So that's a definite possibility.
Okay,
Um,
that sounds good.
there's also different ways that money can be contributed to that. At the church, one of the things they do a lot is buy grocery cards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
They give
yeah,
to the food pantry, and the food pantry can give them out to people.
Makes sense. They can buy
So,
what they need. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's another way that you can do it, and that doesn't, again, that isn't involved with the town budget or the kind of thing that would get them into the bureaucracy.
right.
So there could be ways for us to do that they might
Mhm.
accept.
That sounds good.
That sounds like a good idea. Well, we can look into that one and see what can come of that. Let me write something down about that before I forget about it.
I understand it, like from talking to Mary, I think it's good that they do so much for so many people. And they probably don't want to get tied into the bureaucracy of being through the town per se.
Yeah. Um, and we can, I mean, we'll talk to them and then we can talk some more ourselves sometime about it. I
Okay.
think that we could decide to just take whatever is there for income and contribute it there in some way. Or we could also suggest that an amount per year, the same way as the $50 was done for the library for years.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
That's another way we could deal with it that would mean that this money would continue to help for over a period of time.
right.
If we spend it all, it'll probably be, you won't have any significant money in it for 20 years, for gosh sake, the rate
Yeah.
it's going. But that would be another thing. Do you have any thoughts about the highway fund and the $5,000 there, other than the sidewalk idea?
Again, they have a large budget too, right, Barry?
Oh, sure. The highway budget is over $400,000
Jakes. Yeah.
a year. And so this is again a drop in the bucket that isn't going to make much difference in today's
Right,
business. But if it could be a catalyst for some money towards something like sidewalks, it could do something, you know?
You know, sidewalks, and the other thing too, now that everybody's talking about, is bicycle pathways, you
Yeah.
know, along the sidewalks and stuff. Again, it's probably something to check into and see what they feel about it and what they need. It's kind of hard to compete with a $400,000 budget.
yeah.
Unless, you know, there's a little area they're always talking about. Just recently, that change in the center of town and whatnot, and Carter Street, everything around there needs to be done.
That whole movement is part of this Complete Streets program that
Yeah.
they've been doing in connection with the Central Mass Regional Planning. And it's federal money, I believe.
Okay.
It's from my point of view, the way it's designed, it's really designed more for urban places than ours, but
Yeah,
it's there and it's grant money and they're saying, can't we get some?
yeah.
And it would seem to me that the bike paths and bike lanes and that whole thing could be part of that. And if some local seed money, like this money, could be useful to that kind of an effort, we could put it to it. It might help to get a grant going that would help. Personally, what they were suggesting in the center of town didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I'd love to see sidewalks on Central Street and West Street along 62.
Oh, yeah, that is so true. Yeah,
They're not
that's
safe places
dangerous.
for people to walk at all.
No, it isn't. It's dangerous. Yeah.
And the same thing could be done with bike lanes if we thought that there would be enough use of them to be worthwhile.
So you just kind of wait until you see something happening and then it goes for like seed to start the movement to get sidewalks in that area?
Yeah.
Okay. I
And
don't know how it works. Yeah.
we can also talk particularly to Tim Wheeler, who's been involved with this from the planning board's end for a long time.
Oh, okay. Yep.
We can talk to Tim and see whether like $5,000 of seed money out of this could really help a project that they were trying to push with that. I don't know whether
Okay.
it would, but it certainly is a possible thing. And it certainly did make a difference in terms of getting those sidewalks removed in the center of town where they needed to be.
Nice. Okay.
The sidewalk going up through Carterville is in abominable condition.
Right.
That needs to be done over and improved,
Mm-hmm.
and some real decisions made about how people's driveways that cross it work, because that's part of the difficulty of working on that. And
Right.
of course, we've also got that new. It's occurred to me that we could use a sidewalk down Pleasant Street to Norfolk Village. All of that distance. We could use a sidewalk up Highland Street to the new senior development that's going on up there.
Yep.
And that section of Highland Street on that hill is a horrible place to walk.
Right.
And of course, Central Street and West Street, any amount of those anywhere along the way that it could be helpful in
Yep.
places where we thought it would work. I don't know where there's a lot of foot traffic. Awful lot of us are out walking the roads, especially since COVID.
Yes. Mhm.
And it would be great. And obviously, we aren't going to put sidewalks all over the town, but some of those places where it's hard to walk, it could be good. So we can look into that and check with Tim Wheeler on that. And we'll work on that one. I haven't looked very much at interest rates in the bank of late. I haven't been very excited about anything I've seen, but I know that right now, in the last year or so, there have been some banks that maybe had a percent more than other people. Whether it's worth looking at and discussing that is another matter. We can also, when we schedule another meeting, we could ask Dennis Firabay, the treasurer, to attend. And he's more, he deals with borrowing and investments and stuff all the time. And he's the one who has to do our transactions anyway. So we also could have a meeting with him and just kind of review things and get his view on where money can be put.
Sounds good.
So I'll put that down as a thing to do, to meet with the treasurer. To discuss investments. I remember years ago, Louis Payne was on here for a while. And Louis, of course, worked in the financial district in Boston. And when we were talking about putting, what bank to put money in and stuff, he says, oh, well, I can check in Boston and see what I can find, until we can find something. He come back and said, you know something? The Clinton Savings Bank and the Hudson Savings Bank have got better interest than I can find in Boston.
I love it. I love it.
And so sometimes your local banks can sometimes be as good as any place.
Sure,
And
exactly.
you know them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Makes
exactly.
a huge difference.
You're right down the street instead of going all the way to Boston.
They're part of the community.
We've got DCU just off the corner
Yeah,
in
that's
Marlboro.
That's good too, right?
Mhm.
The banks in Clinton and Hudson and so forth.
Yeah.
So we've got,
Yeah, video, all of them.
yeah.
Right.
So we could take a look at some of those things too, and see whether it's worth considering any changes that way.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
And so I would, yeah, okay, I will put that on an agenda for a future meeting to do that. As I say, we haven't met for a long time, and usually we try to meet once a year, but we haven't, even the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't met because there wasn't too much new to do. And now that we've done this money, unless we can come up with one of these, but I would suggest that we plan another meeting. What do you think? 3 months?
That's fine. Yep,
fine.
whatever.
Yep. That's good. Then I
Okay.
think we're on more top of the things in.
Yeah.
That'll give you enough time to talk to Timmy and set up with Dennis Farabee and
Okay. So we'll try, this is second week in January. So we'll try in this, maybe the second week in April.
That's fine.
Judy, is this time's likely to work then too, isn't it?
yes, it does. Because my daughter's home just to set this thing up. Or maybe by then I'll be smart enough to do these things. And my birthday's on the 13th of April, so I don't want the meeting then.
Oh, all right.
I might not be here.
Oh.
Ooh.
I'll put not the 13th.
Not the
I
13th.
think-
Can I just chime in that the 13th is the second Tuesday of April?
Oh, is it really?
Yep. So you nailed it.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
that's good.
You know what? If they have it at 2:30, not a problem. I'll be
No.
busy with my kids. Hopefully we'll be able to get together.
Well, the other
I'm not
thing is, we may not know what our own schedules at that time are going to be
Right.
this far ahead.
Okay,
So what I suggest is that we make it a point to communicate with each other at the beginning of April and set a date then.
Okay.
you can
Good?
do it on the 13th, not a problem.
You can always do it on the Monday, the 12th, too.
What's on Monday, the 12th?
We could do that instead,
Yeah,
too. Whatever makes it good for you guys. 2:30 is fine, that time area.
okay.
I agree. The time is perfect.
So I'm going to put that down as a possible.
Okay,
And we'll consult with, when we come closer to the time and.
Sounds good.
a week or two before, and then I can post the meeting and set it up.
Okay, super.
Now, the other thing we need to do is to organize for the year, or for whatever. And we should elect a chair and a clerk for the board.
Okay, how many people are on this? Is it
Just us.
just us? Okay, I didn't know. For sure.
Just us.
I thought there were more people last time.
No, it's just 3.
I saw a car fly by just a second ago.
so one sec. Ted? No, I'm making signs for the other people in the house to be quiet so I can hear you.
We know that problem.
I have to do that with my dogs.
Yeah, exactly. The dog, the cat.
Yeah, everything. Okay, so what do you need again?
We need a chairman and a clerk. The clerk needs to write simple minutes of each meeting.
Well,
Okay,
do we
what's
nominate you for the chair since you, you know what you're doing?
doing it anyway?
Well, I can do that. I
Okay,
will tell you right now, the thing that is most a problem for me is remembering to call the meeting. So be prepared to
Well-
harass me in that regard if it's needed. Okay?
I'll do that, Barry. 2502. I got your number.
Oh, God.
Did I not harass you the other night 6 times?
Hmm.
Okay, I'll harass you and remind you,
Yeah,
okay? And you'll be the chair. And are you good at doing clicking like that, or what? Would you be interested in doing that, Pat, or not?
I don't mind if you don't want to. I can take minutes if you would prefer me to do it. Doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Okay, if you want to do it, then you get sick of doing it, I'll take it over. How's that?
Okay, that sounds fine. Yeah, we can
Okay.
switch back and forth. Great.
sounds
Thank
good.
you.
all right, nominations of Barry Yeager for chair and Pat Jackson for clerk.
Yep.
Hearing no more nominations, is there a motion to approve that organization for the year?
So moved.
Yep, so moved. Second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, and I again have to call it for us to do the roll call vote. Barry, aye.
Okay, Judy, I.
And Pat Jackson, aye.
Okay. And so that's voted. And I will report that to the town clerk. I think that completes the agenda that we had arranged for today. Is there anything anybody else wants to bring up or to ask about? Feel free to ask.
I think that's very interesting what you went through the details on some of these, the different money and what it was going to be used for and all the thought that's put into it. I thought that was interesting. I learned more than I knew before about things.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear the history too, the people that donated the money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat the way, why they did it, how they did it, so forth like that,
Yeah,
you know. And like you say, $50 was $50 a long time ago was a lot of money.
Yes, indeed.
And it may not be that now, but it is to some people right now too. So
oh
it's
yeah.
really interesting how it all started, you know?
100 years ago, 120 years ago, $1,000 was a
Oh.
lot of money.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah.
And I will say that I want to just say one other thing, and that is that in your town report every year, there are places where this all shows up, or where various of this information shows up. Some of the old list of funds is all that we usually report from us. This year, I mean, you know, if we expend any funds for something, I would add that to the report. Generally, it's just a list of the funds that the principal of the fund.
Right.
And I don't try to do the expendable part. I refer them to the accountant's report because that all appears in the accountant's report. If you look at the accountant's report near the end,
Okay.
it's in last year's book, it's in page 84 of the town
Okay.
report. There's non-expendable trust funds and expendable trust funds. And those are the same two groups that we talked about earlier.
Right. Yep.
And that does include cemetery funds and library funds, which we don't usually deal with anymore. But the cemetery commission deals with the cemetery funds, and the library trustees deal with the library funds. But I mention that because those things are found in that report, and that will give you current balances for all of that as of the last June 30th at the end of the last fiscal year. So these figures were from June 30, 2019. There's also a school fund called the Hoffman Fund, which is in memory of Marion Hoffman, Ira Hoffman's mother.
Oh, okay, yep,
And she came and lived in Berlin the last of her life, I
right,
think at Northwood Village. And he made contributions to the school in her name, and that's what this Hoffman Fund is about. And the school committee handles it.
okay,
They brought up the matter to me in the course of the past year. I heard from Sue Henry on the school committee, and they were trying to figure out who's supposed to do what. Because again, it was done by the Berlin School Committee, and now we have a regional school committee.
okay,
Yeah, right.
How are we going to handle that?
yeah,
So that's not one that we have handled at all. As I said, if it were desired for us to consider it, we could take it over if it was
Yeah.
needed. But I said, you really got to talk to Ira Hoffman and see what his intent was and whether it, I don't think it's a large amount of money there to collect interest. I think he makes occasional contributions to it. So that
Okay.
they can buy books for the library or other things like that for the school.
for the school, right,
So as I say, there are a few other things in the list in the town accountant's report, but page 84 in the town accountant's report has it. And in the treasurer's report, page 68 and 69 in the town report, 68 and 69, Dennis Farabee reports the balances in each account every month of the fiscal year. And so on that page, you'll find each one of these funds we talked about with numbers, which is the total of both the principal and the expendable money. And those numbers are carried at what the balance was every month right through the year. So you can
Okay.
see whether there's change like that plotted through the year if you'd like to look those up and just be able to see that. So those are things that are out there for the town to see if they want to, but most people don't notice them at all.
okay,
But at that point, he had $27,000 in the total MMDT, Massachusetts Municipal Depository account based on various funds of the town. And then some other things were in Clinton Savings Bank or Avidia or whatever. And again, some of those other funds are not funds that we usually handle. So I mentioned that, so if you want to look for those things in the town report, you can.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, I'm learning a lot.
Mhm.
Okay. Very good. If there's anything else that somebody wants to bring up, we can. If not, we'll plan to meet on April 12th or somewhere near that date for our next meeting. And we'll invite the treasurer to that.
That sounds
Okay, and I'll remind
lovely.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Okay?
Pat, nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh. Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
And I'll
Okay.
second.
All
Thank
right,
you. Motion made and seconded to adjourn, and again, we have to vote by roll call. Barry, aye.
Judy, I.
Pat, aye.